Hello, and welcome to the third episode of MATC Now. I'm your host, Carrie Mahone. On today's episode, Don Weimer, an economic instructor at MATC, will be joining us live to talk about last week's elections and more. Also, we'll be joined via Zoom call by Christine Litwin, a counselor here at MATC, to talk about how the election may have affected young people's mental health. All this and more on this episode of MATC Now. To you live from the Milwaukee PBS studios inside the downtown MATC campus. Today, our co-host is Don Weimer, an economic instructor. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm very well, Carrie. Thanks for having me here. And I want to say thanks to the staff for being so careful with the COVID precautions, making me feel secure.
Of course, no problem. So can you describe your role here at MATC?
Well, I've been teaching economics at MATC for 17 years. And about 10 years ago, when I realized how much trouble students were in financially, I wrote the curriculum for a personal finance course, which I've been teaching now for about 10 years. And since then, in the economics department, we've added some courses in ecological economics, healthcare economics, and this fall we'll be opening up economics of discrimination. And this fall we'll be offering a section of international economics. So we're a small department, but we're scrappy.
What would you say was your motivation for joining the economic field?
Well, I came out of manufacturing. I'm actually a product of MATC. More years ago than I care to think, I was a underemployed college dropout, and I came to MATC and learned how to be a machinist and worked at one of our major manufacturing plants. That plant closed in the 80s. I lost pretty much everything, had to start over. So I started going back to school and was looking at a different program, but economics was required for that program. So I had to take my first course in economics and decided I liked that more than what I was other thing was doing. So I took economics and ended up teaching it.
And now you're here.
Where I started.
Right. So how important do you think this election was?
Well, I have to say all elections are important. I mean, people shed blood for the right of Americans to vote. And when we don't exercise that right, I think we disrespect those who came before us. That said, this election was in the middle of a pandemic and in the middle of a recession, and a very divisive president in a divided country. I try not to be too partisan in the classroom, but I do reserve the right to express my opinion. And 4 years ago, I was not happy with the results, but I accepted them. And when we see a sitting politician, an elected representative of our country, questioning American democracy,
right,
that's why people need to vote, so we can practice that democracy.
I 100% agree with you. Thank you so much. MATC's campus has finally started working on building their very own student housing. We'll take a look at that in a second. But also, with the elections just last week, and this year was definitely a huge one, many people were worried about in-person voting. Brenda Wood, site supervisor for MATC Early Voting, gave us a look into what MATC did to help the community with voting.
Last year, J. Jeffers & Company purchased the block at 333 West State Street, including the Journal-Sentinel complex, with plans for redevelopment. The 1962 addition to the complex, located on the corner of West State Street and North Old World 3rd Street, will be converted into MATC student housing. This is the first time the college has had its own student housing.
When I was at MATC shortly after 2013, there was an option to live in the dorms through UWM, and that was the option I took. The UWM dorms aren't exactly close to the MATC campus. It did take some time to transport myself onto campus, and having been closer to MATC or in the downtown area definitely would have been helpful.
The complex is located between Pere Marquette Park and the Panther Arena, just 2 blocks east of MATC's downtown campus. The project will be beneficial to MATC students looking to get the full college experience.
Another factor that was interesting with that situation specifically was that you were with all UWM students. So when you were talking about, like, say, your classes and your teachers, you would be talking about completely different people. And it was kind of hard to relate to people on that level when you're just living different lives. So I would have enjoyed being able to be in a community of my peers and be able to connect on that level.
Besides the apartments, the facility will include a computer lab, fitness room, community room, and study areas. Residents will also have access to free Wi-Fi. The 6-story Journal Communications building, located on the northwest side of the block, will be converted into market rate housing, with retail space at street level. The entire project, known as Journal Square, is set to cost around $54 million, with $1 million being contributed by the city of Milwaukee. Construction has already begun, and the student housing section is set to be completed by the start of the 2021-22 school year.
Mail-in voting could become the new normal, as it is in many, there are several Western states where voters are just mailed a ballot and they mail it back. Mail-in voting has been an option for Wisconsin voters for a long time, and it is a safe, easy, convenient way to vote, and I do think it is here to stay. Voters can drop off ballots that they received in the mail. We can accept them here, and we can witness them for the voters. So if they need that, we're happy to witness and seal it for the voter, and they can drop it here, and we will make sure it gets to the Election Commission for them. I think it's especially important for young voters to start their civic duty as early as they can once they're 18. Once you start that habit and use your voice and express your constitutional right, I think that's a habit you'll develop over your lifetime and continue to be a participant in the electoral process. I think it's important for young voters to do that as soon as they can. So I think it's important for voters to sort of determine for themselves what they believe are trusted news sources, and then also to try to verify those news sources. So if they read an article by something that they believe in, then it's important to also verify that with another news source. I think that's one way to go about it. I would prefer that they try to not just believe something that they see as a Facebook post or something to that effect, but really to try to verify and determine for themselves what they believe are trusted news sources. There's always another election right around the corner, so it's our civic duty to pay attention to those elections and who's on the ballot, and to exercise our right to vote and to use our voice in that process. There will be likely school board races and other things, and that primary is in February. Then there's an April general election, so that's for 2021. And then in 2022, there's always state assembly and Senate races and a gubernatorial race in November.
That's exciting to know. But now about the elections. Tensions were very high when it came to the election, especially now when everyone needs to be safe. Wouldn't you say that, Don?
Yes, the way they made sure people got out and voted, but in a safe manner, was great.
MATC alumni Adrian Davis talks to us about what life outside of MATC is like in the journalism field at UW Milwaukee, and how MATC was able to help her get to where she is today. Let's take a look.
MATC campus has given people opportunities to chase their dreams and goals. Just like one of their very own alumni student, this person is putting their knowledge and skills to good use.
I'm at UWM now, and I'm in the journalism program, so that's what I'm doing now. And I work in education, and I also have a internship for Copyright Magazine, which is a Black-owned media production company that's stationed at UWM, well, was because of the COVID. My first assignment that I pitched for Copyright Magazine is a project that's going to be on self-love and self-image. I picked that topic because, society has vision of what beauty truly is. It could be from personality, from what they look like to what they wear. I really wanted to do a focus on Generation Z because right now they're the generation that's the most influenced by a lot of what they see on TV and social media. They're really smart too, so people categorize them in a box, but people don't really know how they're viewing things as the younger generation, or even people my age, how we view things, because we're right in the middle. So I decided to focus on this because I wanted people to share their different perspectives of what self-image is and what it means to them and how they view it.
Are you guys covering the election in your magazine? If so, give us more details.
A creative way that Copyright decided to focus on voting, we decided to have a few local artists featured, and each person was to write a 1-minute song about voting and how they feel about it and the effects from it. So it's kind of mixing unorthodox writing with real serious topics such as politics and the upcoming election on November 3rd.
I'm glad Copyright is giving everyone a voice.
Because it's a very important topic, we're always posting and pushing everybody to vote. I know this year's, not really ideal year for a lot of people, and there's been a lot that's been going on, but I always encourage people to vote, especially people of color, because it's something that we couldn't do before. So even if you're not sure if you want to vote for your interests, because it's something that we weren't allowed to do before. So that's a very important topic that we are covering at the magazine, and a lot of people should be talking about it because it is important. And before you know it, November 4th is going to be here, and November 3rd is going to be here. I'm sorry. Before you know it, November 3rd is going to be here, and you don't know if you're going to be able to go to voting polls. I heard a lot of places aren't even going to fully be open, so people need to really pay attention to what's going on.
That's awesome. Copyright is giving everyone a chance to get their voices heard. So please remember to vote November the 3rd.
Wow, it seems like they've gotten a pretty good goal for themselves. Glad MATC could help with that. What about you, Don?
Yeah, I think it's when MATC can set up the place for people to vote, and when people could vote here on campus, and there was voting early here on campus, and it was just well-rounded, well-run operation, and I was really glad people took advantage of it.
Yeah, me too. We have a special guest joining us today via Zoom call, Christine Litwin, a counselor here at MATC, to talk about how politics and how the election can affect students. Hi, Christine.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. Now, can you quickly explain your role here at MATC?
I'm a counselor with MATC's Counseling Services Support Team, and we provide free confidential support around mental health, substance abuse issues, as well as resources and referrals to the community for our students.
That's great. So why would it be smart for a student to get in contact with a counselor if they're, feeling some type of way about the elections and politics and things like that?
Well, not so much smart, and I appreciate letting me explain, but I think it's really to give them self-support. I think a lot of times our students have so many things going on, they don't want to reach out because of all those commitments and responsibilities. And we still have in our society that if you talk with someone, you're weak, you should be able to handle things on your own. So I think it's really being your own best friend and knowing when you just need a safe place to talk with someone that's objective, that can support you and maybe direct you if you'd like with some resources, or just take that pause, that breath, and just say, this is what's going on, and be heard. We don't have that a lot in our lives these days with everything going on.
So how would you help someone get a handle on how they're feeling about it?
We offer them a safe place where they can talk. We're objective. We really try to take an inventory of how they're doing right now. Are they eating? Are they sleeping? Are they getting good nutrition? Do they have that balance in their lives? And with what's happened this past year, a lot of times people have experienced so much stress, they're kind of holding everything inside. So we work on how they're taking care of themselves. And with the elections, sometimes people have been at different terms with who they wanted as a candidate, maybe people close to them, maybe wanting the opposite candidate. This could be a time where they can rethink how they want those people in their lives, relationships that maybe were stressed. So we work on how they want their life to proceed from here in. So we help them plan, we support them, and we can give them resources as well as keep them going. We have lots of students that we just keep in contact to see how things are going with them this semester, how they're coping, and having that balance come back in their lives.
Well, thank you so much, Christine, for joining us today and telling us all about the election and politics and how it can affect students' mental health.
You're welcome. Thank you. And remember, you can reach us at counseling@matc.edu. Thank you.
In this era of technology, people tend to believe everything they read on the internet. We talked to Dr. Kenneth O'Reilly, a history instructor here at MATC, before the election to see what voting and elections were like in the past.
What we do in simple terms, we crank out credit hours that our students, MATC students, can take with them and transfer to University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee or any other four-year college. Often people who pursue history degrees get into education, and not exclusively, but often, and that's on two levels. And then the 800-pound gorilla is K through 12. And so a lot of people who major in history enter the public school system, the charter school system, the Catholic schools. I came up through Catholic schools. Again, the 100th anniversary. If you look back at the history of voting in the United States, it's really one of the great stories in American history is the move toward universal suffrage. When the Constitution was first written and put into effect, 1787, then put into effect 1789, only white men who owned property could vote. But even they couldn't vote for very much. They couldn't vote for federal judges, those were appointed. They couldn't vote for U.S. senators. They're elected by state legislatures. There was no popular vote for the presidency whatsoever, just the Electoral College. And so only white men who owned property, even they, could only vote for members of the House. People should vote. Well, it's getting late now. So it's getting to the point where it's almost too late to vote by mail. But people should have voted by mail. Vote whatever way you can. And if that means standing in line for an hour, or down in Georgia, some of the lines where people were standing in line for 11 hours. But you got to vote. This is our democracy.
Times were definitely different then, but now it's time for a quick look at the upcoming week in the MATC Minute. Carrie?
Thanks, Don. On November 11th, MATC is holding interview presentations to help students get comfortable with different interview styles and techniques. This can help students make sure they are successful in getting a job in the career path they desire. Have you wanted to take some classes in midterm? Are you going to be continuing your academic career here at MATC? Advising days have started. Talk with an advisor or visit the MATC website and get all set with classes. Speaking of midterm and spring classes, don't forget that starting today, Monday, November 9th, students who are military veterans can get registered for class, and on November 10th, all other current students can register. Struggling with mental health? MATC is hosting a virtual Question, Persuade, Refer suicide prevention training session on Thursday, November 12th. Want more information? Visit the MATC website. Lastly, do you have a child and have trouble juggling school and being a parent? Need to find somewhere for your kids during class? MATC's Children's Center will be accepting applications for the spring semester starting today, Monday, November 9th.
Thank you, Carrie. With all the news about the election going on, let's not forget about our local coverage, and what better place to get it from our very own MATC Times. Here's the scoop.
The MATC Times is an award-winning college newspaper dedicated to outstanding journalism. Even though much has changed in the current year, the Times has a storied history of excellence that it continues to uphold.
We are one of the top college newspapers in the nation. We're a member of the Associated Collegiate Press and the College Media Association. We've won the Pacemaker Award, which is the college newspaper version of the Academy Award, 13 times. And our newspaper was actually submitted into the College Media Association Hall of Fame in 1989. We're just known for our quality and our conviction to making sure our readers have newspaper copy that they enjoy and feel good about reading.
The Times welcomes students from all different kinds of backgrounds to pitch in and help create the stories that shape their community, keeping their readers informed, but also entertained.
When I was at the student orientation in Victoria, and some of the other people from the Times were there, and they talked about the Times, they mentioned how they were looking for photographers and other people, and in my mind I was like, oh, I'm a photographer, I could do that. Okay, so then they're like, hey, we have a booth at the end, you can come up and talk to us, and I was like, okay, I should go do that.
Our door is usually open if someone's interested, so they can always knock. We have papers set up to where they can, talk, and we can see if you guys, what roles you can contribute here at the Times.
I am the only student film critic for the MATC Times here. I'm the only one who writes about movies. I review movies, and right now I'm actually covering the Milwaukee Film Festival, which is all virtual, and just writing reviews, summaries. I'm trying to watch a lot of movies here. Even though I can't be at the theater, I'm still watching them.
We're always looking for students to come in and contribute and help out. This year, even though we have a limited number of people in the school here, 75% of our new staff have actually just knocked on the door and come in and said, hey, I'd like to contribute. Whereas 25% have actually submitted us an email, or they've gone to our website and discussed their interest in joining the Times.
Not only do students work on creating the content for the newspaper, they are upholding the history of MATC itself.
We have archives and books that goes back from ages, and it's literally so important to me and important to the school's history and everything like that.
If you ever visit the MATC Times newsroom, you'll see that we have an archive of our newspaper going back to 1920s. So you could pretty much look at the history of this school through the pages of the MATC Times.
Developments within the institution are archived in the articles of the Times, which are then printed on site through the MATC printing department.
My relationship with the folks at the MATC Times spanned over the past 25 years, where I worked with a lot of different students here at the college, which were all great students. And we produced the school MATC Times newspaper.
We're one of the few schools in the nation that actually has a printing department on site, where we can work hand in hand with them to see how that process is going.
With divisiveness and uncertainty looming in the nation, it is now more important than ever to stay informed with reliable news sources. The MATC Times is making a commitment to local coverage of stories within the community.
This year is important, and it's the most important election, so that's what we're taking into consideration and doing moving forward.
We're going to focus on local elections as well, and we're also going to include a lot of voter information.
With new developments happening rapidly, the MATC Times is using their website, Facebook page, and social media presence to inform the public in a timely fashion.
Whatever photo opportunities that we can get are photo opportunities that we're taking. And that's like a social media smaller aspect. I mean, another thing is like they're opening voter areas at these places, which they've never done before. Let's go take photos of the buildings and the places where you'll be able to vote that weren't open before.
If you're a first-time voter, take it seriously. Don't take it for granted.
We're not stopping writing just because there's a pandemic. It's actually, you could argue it's more important than ever to write for people, to give them hope and give them something to do in their free time. But we're still going.
The MATC Times is keeping the community up to date on the latest news and recording what is soon to be history for future generations to come.
For this week's episode of MATC Now, a special thanks to our guest Christine Litwin and of course our co-host Don Weimer for helping us stay informed about the election. Join us next time where we will take a look at the photography department and how students plan on finishing off the semester strong. For MATC Now, I'm Carrie Mahone. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.